Good morning, Vietnam. Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. Brilliant guy. Gone too soon. Um, anyway, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Show.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Diane Elmurray Clements. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
How are you, Vincent?
Oh, just great.
Hey, Diane, your electrician came by yesterday. Very nice guy.
He is a wonderful guy, isn't he?
He is a wonderful guy. You know, and I got to tell you, I don't take like when I ask people to refer somebody or to send somebody to me that I'm looking for, an electrician or a plumber or something, I don't go to anybody because, you know, you got to be careful what you get, right? So, but you have been brilliant, Diane, in sending folks, and they have been very professional. They've been very courteous, timely,
Like I
all
tell you,
those things.
Diane is the queen of resource.
She's,
Look, I don't mess around with the BS, and when I get them, let me tell you, I will fire them. My daughter will tell you, I have probably fired 15 landscapers. I don't mess around. It ain't that hard. Mow the lawn and take the trash away. Not that hard.
you know what? Wait. Can I tell you something about? All right, I got to tell you.
And when I come, and Eric, and this is what annoys me. When I come, I don't come with just one property. I'm coming with properties, and I'm coming with referrals. So when you mess up my stuff, I'm not sending you more business. I'm canceling you. Not that hard.
Can I tell you something about? I got to say this about mowing lawns. I got a guy, right, and he literally lives down the street from me.
Right.
And I told you about this, right? And so he mows the lawn, does a great job. This past Saturday, you know, I was doing something and I hear the lawnmower in the back, and so Anton's out there mowing the lawn. And then about an hour or so later, Amina comes in and she says, you know, the tenant next door. Now, we know the owners of the house next door. They're very lovely people. And they had horrible tenants before. Those tenants, Diane, tore up the house. They had to gut the kitchen. They had to remove the tub because the previous tenants were putting their shoes in the tub. So, so during the wintertime it snows, right? They come in the house, they put all their shoes in there. And so the salt from the shoe, right, ruined the glaze inside the tub. Right. Like they just did so much damage. And then, so let me do sort of two stories. Now I'm kind of mixing them in. But so these are the tenants they evicted, didn't pay rent. They weren't paying rent. And so Ni and Na, they're from Nigeria. They said to me, they said, Eric, they haven't paid rent. And we asked them, is everything okay? And you know what they told them? We were saving our money because we're moving.
Look, Eric, I've had the same thing happen to me with a tenant. They stopped paying rent, said they wasn't going to pay, called the health department, all kinds of stuff, so they wouldn't have to pay rent. I told my neighbors, because it's always good to be good with your neighbors, especially when you have rental properties.
Right.
I told my neighbors how much of a headache they were. They tried to move on a Sunday while I was sitting in church, and my neighbor called me and was like, they moving out right now. I left church and followed them to the new location, which wasn't far, so I could make sure I could serve them. Because they... And look, and I took a picture and waved, hey, how you doing? To let them know that I know where you at now.
Well, listen, Farrakhan will tell you, because he drove me home one night. So these tenants, they did move out, right? Nia and I were happy that they moved out. And the night that Farrakhan drove me home from the barbershop, we're sitting in the car and we're talking, and we see these guys standing in front of the house next door to me, right? In front of Nia and Na's house. So Farrakhan said, yo, man, are they planting drugs or something? So I said, oh. So I got out of the car, and he was concerned about me getting out of the car. That's why I love the brother. But I got out of the car, and I went over to them, and I said, yo, what are you? Because it was evening. I said, what are you all doing loitering in front of the house? And then the guy looked at me. He said, hey, I used to live here. And I looked at it and said, oh, that was the tenant, Diane. So I'm like, so why are you in front of this house at like 8:30 at night? You know why he was in front of the house, Diane?
Because he left some drugs behind, had to go get it.
Nope. More trifling than that. So,
oh, God. He was breaking in the house?
No. So he moved to East Orange. But the restaurant that he likes doesn't deliver to East Orange. So
oh, my God.
Diane,
he gave him, house, going to meet him?
Diane, he gave him that address.
That's so sad.
Wait a minute. But then beyond that, because then I told Nia and Nah. The next day I said, yo, do you know that they come and they have food delivered and they stand outside and wait? And then they said, Eric, it's worse than that. We had to put a lock on the mailbox because they were coming, intercepting the mail out of the mailbox because their kids were still going to the Bloomfield school.
Wow.
So they were going in. So that's a federal offense.
Yeah.
But they were going in the mailbox. I gotta tell you, so the next time I saw them, you know me, Diane, I'm the neighborhood police. And next time I saw them, I told them, I said, you have no business here. Don't come around anymore. Love don't live here anymore. Right? So that's the one story, but it melded into the other one. So here's the other one. So now Nia and I have a new tenant. So Anton mowed the lawn. Amina came in about an hour later and she goes, Baba. I said, what? She goes, the neighbor next door said she was going to call the town because the landscaper broke the ordinance. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he started mowing before 8 o'clock.
Yes.
Wait.
I hate that.
Diane. Now, since I am the neighborhood police, I got to adhere, right? So I called Anton. I said, Anton, what time did you start? He said he started at about 1:45. I said, Anton, you got to start on time. You got to start at 8 o'clock. I said, because the neighbor, we don't want any issues, and technically she's correct. But here's where I had my problem. Not that she wasn't right, but at the neighborly thing to do would have just been to ask me, to just say, hey, listen, could you ask your landscaper to blah, 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 because I was asleep or I was whatever. But to come out of your house and immediately, because I don't even know her name, and immediately talk about how you're going to report me. Well, you know what that did, Diane? Got on the wrong side of me. So now I'm waiting for her to fuck. Diane, I'm waiting for her to fuck up somehow. Okay, what she does, I'm going to sit there and wait because it's going to happen. And when it happens, she could drop a piece of tissue by accident. I'm going to record it, and I'm going to tell her that I'm going to call a town so she can get a $200 fine. See, don't do that. See, because I would simply just say, hey, ma'am, you dropped that on the ground. Right? You understand? Or if we were neighborly, I would not only acknowledge she dropped it, but I say, oh, let me pick it up for you. But now, see, we're not on those terms now. We're on, I'm going to call the police on you.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
I was just saying that to my husband the other day about, and especially on Sundays. You're not supposed to be mowing on Sundays. It drives me crazy. The guy that lives next door to me, the couple, they have older kids, and one of the kids is a fireman. But so he has these irregular hours. But his thing is early in the morning on Saturday morning, 7:30, or Sunday morning, he wants to mow the lawn and trim the lawn. Really? Like, come on now. Like, it's ridiculous.
Did you talk to him?
No, I didn't talk to him. I've talked to them about other transgressions that they've had going on. So they've handled those things. So I just deal with the lawn mowing. I'm just like, look, he works nice. As long as they maintain the house, I just overlook it now. But there are some times I'm just like, because what happens is when one person, I don't know what it is about two men. One person comes out to mow the lawn. Now somebody else wants to mow the lawn down the street. Now somebody on the other street wants to mow the lawn.
You know what it is? See,
domino effect.
No. I'm going to tell you what it is. It ain't the men. It's the women saying, he's mowing the lawn. Why don't you get your lazy ass out there and mow the lawn? That's what's going on, Diane.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. It's that pressure we feeling. Your breath on the back of my neck telling me to get out there and do telling me to get out there and do some work.
And I'm not getting my knee off your neck until you get out there and mow this lawn.
That's why you hear me out there singing them Negro
Spiritual. Swing low.
And I told you my straw hat and my overalls. I'm ready. I'm ready, Miss Diane.
Whatever.
But that's what it is. I'm telling you, we feel that pressure.
I don't understand why people don't start after 12 noon. Like, give people a break on the weekend. Like,
well, so listen. Sunday, if anybody was mowing the lawn on Sunday, I'd have a fit. I told you about my guy next door. See, and my neighbors now listen to the show, right? So they, like the guy next door, he listened. He said, "Man, I heard you talk about eating my pigeons." So listen, like, I don't nothing up my sleeves. I speak what's on my mind. And so my neighbor across the street, the one I told you with the loud music, nope, have my conversations with him too. Hold on, let's take this call. This may actually be an order, not a phone call. Hold on. Hello? Hello?
Hey, good morning. The things we do.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vince. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Diane. I just called because Diane said, why they don't mow at 12 noon? You know how hot it is to be pushing a lawnmower at 12 noon in the summertime? That's why you do those outrageous hours, okay? You do it before the sun really comes up. It's either do it before the sun comes up or you got to do it when the sun is going down. Because no non-professional wants to do it during the middle of the day. That's what they get paid for. Like, if all you're doing is trying to stay the city closed and stay out the room from the wife bugging you, you don't want to do that at 12 o'clock in the afternoon when the sun is beaming on his neck.
Well, listen, Diane. But that's when Miss Diane wants you to do it. That's Miss Diane don't care.
No phone calls, no conversation before 12 on Saturdays. I need a break. I need time to sleep in one day out the week.
You need some, like, noise canceling headsets.
Oh, no, that's
there
not.
You go.
Then you can't hear what's going on.
Well, wait a minute.
No, you need to be on Tyler Perry's island when he ain't there.
If there's an emergency, then how would I hear that? No, I can't do that. That's not safe.
Well, there are certain things that you can control and you can't. I think the noise cancellation headsets would be in the realm of your control.
Yeah, and you got that dog. Teach that dog to tell you when there's a fire.
Oh, they do all of that stuff, but still, I still have Gotta be careful. That's a woman's instinct. Always has to be careful because if something happens,
you don't want to put on.
Tell him to go check it out.
So you don't want to put on your noise canceling headsets, but you want the neighbor down the street to start mowing his lawn when the sun is at its hottest.
Absolutely.
There you go.
I got you.
There you go.
Look, you burn more calories at that time.
Because it's all about Diane.
No, I would say that Diane is probably much like most women in this respect, right?
Because my wife will do the exact same thing that Diane is doing.
They don't understand what Farrakhan said, and so, they just say, go out there and do it now.
Okay, so let's a happy medium, 10 o'clock then. 10 o'clock.
It depends on the size. See, if you got more than a half an acre, it's going to take a minute.
Well, you know what? But
if you got more than a half an acre, I'm not really going to hear that noise because we're going to be separated.
Right.
But because we live in a semi-suburb city over here in Hillside, you hear everything.
Yeah, so what
you got to do now, maybe if the houses are closer together, then what you need to tell all the gentlemen in the neighborhood need to go and get modern electric lawnmowers because they're quiet.
Yeah. Oh, or you can get the manual.
They're quiet, but they're the worst.
No, they suck, but at least they're quiet. You got to have a compromise. You're either going to have a really pretty lawn or you're going to have a peaceful Saturday morning. Which one you want? You can't have them all, Diane. Yeah, you queens, you can't have everything.
We bought an electric lawnmower. Oh my God, I hate that thing. First of all, it's so light you can move it with your pinky, which means that because it's so light, you can mess around and your grass is uneven. So the grass is not completely the 3 inches that it should be, because even if the land is flat, if you move it or alter it, the blade is higher. Oh, it's a hot mess. I don't like it.
Yeah. So, Diane, is there any compromise that can happen with you and the neighbors?
No, I need them to start after at least 10 o'clock on Saturday.
Well, that's no compromise.
Sunday. I need a quiet Sunday.
Yeah, I could go with the quiet Sunday.
This is why I like the quarantine. It's been so quiet. You don't have to worry about cars riding up and down the street, blowing their horns, the kids, none of that. Everybody's in their own yard, making their own voice.
And the air pollution is down.
Speaking of quarantine, did you guys see, and I posted it, and I don't post many things from the Post, but I posted this on my page yesterday from New York Post, and they had on the left side on the cover, they had a massive crowd of people, protesters, right? And then they said, this is fine. And then they had on the right side, I guess these may be some protesters or people hanging out wanting to, be a part of opening up America again. And they said, but this is dangerous. And you've got a mob of people on one side, and you've got like literally a fraction of that on the other side. And you've had the media, and even now I was listening this morning, and they were talking about the spread and opening too fast, and got to be careful and this and that. But you've got these protests that are going on that are being sanctioned, right? That are being encouraged by, by the same folks who are saying, well, yeah, you go ahead and protest, but you can't go stand next to a person with a mask on at a restaurant. Yeah, you can go and protest with 12,000 people, but you can only have 5 people at a time in this takeout restaurant. What's that all about?
Control. Well, there's some things that they're trying to control for whatever reason. Right. The other thing is, all last week, the media has really avoiding clamping down on the protesters, but they have started saying that, they're looking at when the protests first started and the rise or spike that they're having in the COVID-19 cases. So, but they don't correlate, though. That's the problem. Because the rise and the spike in the COVID-19 cases have nothing to do with the protesters. Because, one, it's not the protesters coming into the hospital talking about they're sick, for one. And then, two, because of the time frame, in order for you to see a spike based on the protesting, it would have to been 2 weeks from the last protest. Correct. Right? If you really want to, so we haven't gone 2 weeks from the last protest yet. So they no. See, the last. Say from the first. Now you could say from the first. The first, correct. 1 days, right? Correct. You could say, but that only counts if the person's been in a protest. Yes, and that has not been proven yet. Well, that's what it leads to, and of course, they do when they're doing the testing. They're also doing the distance tracing and tracking.
So here's my thing, and I thought about this morning. When we're talking about opening up the country and people are going back to work really don't have any type of medical conditions or restrictions in place that are stopping them from coming back to work, except for, we're going to take your temperature. But we already know that there are asymptomatic people that are walking around that don't have a temperature that could be possibly infected. Should it be that everyone that goes back into the workplace should be tested and come back with their test results before they go back to work?
Yeah, that's illegal. That's illegal. You cannot do that. Really? What do you mean it's not illegal? It's not illegal to force people. It's not legal to force people to turn over their medical records for their job. That is illegal. That is yes, it is.
Wait. We're only talking about testing, and the reason why I'm saying that is, if you had to be enrolled in the school system, you would have to present the school system with your immunization card. So my thing is, why wouldn't you be able to present that to go back to work. And the other thing is, even if you did that, going back to work does not prove that you aren't contagious or you can't be contagious 2 weeks after you're back into work, because just going to work doesn't mean that you're going to be just amongst the work people who have already been proven negative, but you're still going to be going back out into the world. So how can you really stop this spread?
Well,
unless everybody is working from home.
But Diane, I was listening to something by somebody I thought was reasonable in the way that he was laying it out. He said, look, at the end of the day, you're not going to end it, right? And so we have to learn to live with it. And he said it's just like cars, right? We accept the fact that there are going to be automobile fatalities, but people are not going to stop driving, right? So what we try to do is mitigate the amount of fatalities by doing certain kinds of things. But we're not going to stop driving. We see airplane crashes, but we're not going to stop flying, right? And so now we see this. And so he said we have to learn to live with it. And now how we do that and do it smartly is the thing to focus on. But you're not, the idea of eradicating it is just like the flu or some of these other things. They're around. Right, we just have learned to live with them, and so I think that we're gonna have to do that. But like I told you, look, people were living their best life on Bloomfield Avenue the other day. They were outside, no mask, no nothing, drinking, laughing, and I just drove right on by with my window up. They don't breathe
what is the window up going to do? But
because listen, somebody could sneeze, right, and I don't know how far those particles are traveling, and then all of a sudden, if I'm driving by, one of them may come into the car and smack me right by my nostril, and next thing you know, I got corona. Nope, window up. You got your mask down, I got my window up. That's it.
True. Oh, by the way, Diane, you're absolutely right in your theory, because there are corporations that do get your medical record because you have to take a drug test to work there. So it's to the extent of the actual medical diagnosis or the specific case. But they have to create a law for that. No, they don't have to create a law for that. No. They created a law to be able to do that. They created the HEPA law so that you cannot. That's not the law I'm talking about. They changed laws so that all and you actually have to sign an employment waiver for that when you get the job. When you get hired at a job, you sign a waiver to get tested for drugs and turn those medical records over. That's correct. So what would be the difficulty in someone saying, okay, here's the waiver of taking your COVID-19? Right, because now they already have the job. So presently right now you are furloughed because of the act of the government. You said all jobs aren't furloughed. Right? All jobs haven't been. Right? Okay, so all jobs haven't. I mean, we don't want to go back and forth.
I don't want to.
The point is, you would have to.
I'm trying to get into what your point is.
Ask permission.
Right. What is the point? What is the point?
So past that. Yeah. So think about the Petri dish, where most illnesses, viruses are passed in the school system. Mm-hmm. How do we make that safe enough? Because if we can make the school system safe, we should be able to make the environment in the workplace safe.
Vaccines, Diane. Vaccines are the only thing that I think are going to do that.
But there are no vaccines.
I'm sorry.
There are no vaccines at this point. And then the second thing is, how are you vaccinating everybody as a precaution, or are you vaccinating people once they get it? Because think about it. Even with the flu vaccine. Everybody doesn't take the flu vaccine, and they still don't get the flu.
Right. So I think that at some point, I think that at some point, and I know the anti-vaccine people are out there, but if we are looking at a novel coronavirus where you could be asymptomatic and you could spread it to countless people, then it's not waiting to see if you got it, because by the time you got it, now you have to do contact tracing to see who else might have gotten it from you while you were asymptomatic, right?
Okay. So I spoke talked to several nurses and a couple of doctors that work at a health center that I used to sit on the board at. They will not take any vaccination that they put out for this. And they work in the professional healthcare system. And they've had a couple of doctors that have been deathly sick, and they said they wouldn't do it. So how do you convince, or how do you legislate to force people, again, because you got to think about all these other vaccinations and communities. You have Jewish communities.
But so here's the deal. You can, but Diane, but you can do certain things, right? So I can't, I may not, if I were the government, right? So I'm saying the big bad government, or the, this, if I were the government, I may not be able to make you get a vaccine if you're self-employed and you're working out of your home or whatever, right? But if you are a government employee, right, and you have to be in a government building, right, I could mandate that you have to be vaccinated. If your child is in a...
Now let's think about when you guys got the booster shot, because that was before I never had the booster shot. What were the elements that said, everybody has to have the booster shot so that you don't get sick? And then at what point did they say, okay, so this has been eradicated, we don't have this problem anymore, so this is not mandated for anybody? And then the other thing is, how do you convince people to get that are not going to push back because they don't trust government and they don't trust the health officials?
No, they're going to push back. There's pushback now. There's pushback now. You've got people all over the place. You've got Assemblyman Holly right in Roselle, right, who is anti-vaccine. You've got, whoever he is, the Kennedy relative who's traveling all over the country. Whipping up people, to anti-vaccines. So that's happening now. But like I said, what you can mandate is if your child attends a public school, then the government can say your child has to be vaccinated or they cannot come to school. But
wait, back up. But this is the issue. Children aren't the ones that have been getting it at the most rapid rate and passing it along. It's the adults.
Look.
So it's the adults that people are more concerned about, not so much the kids.
Well, but the science is talking about this other thing that the young children are getting. I forgot what it is, but it is something having to... Right.
Yeah.
So whatever that other thing is, which is associated with the novel coronavirus...
Kiyosaki disease or something like that, right? Isn't that what they call it?
Yes, then they need to... It's just what I'm saying. So, no, they need to... And the anti-vaccine people don't call.
Okay, so if we don't do vaccinations, or we do vaccinations, and you say it that you could pass it throughout the air, why not just fumigate the whole place? Why not fumigate the whole states, all the states? Why not do that? If you're saying that, past vaccinations, that may or may not be mandatory, for those who don't want to do that, why wouldn't the government say, well, we're just going to fumigate everybody?
So you want to send the plane. So you already have the conspiracy theorists that talk about the chemtrails, right?
Yeah.
So now what you want is actual chemtrails, and you want them to drop down, some chemical to kill the droplets.
Right. I'm just saying options. Options. I didn't say it was a good option. I did not say it was a good option. Because when you say it out loud again, it sounds real crazy.
Yeah.
But it's an option.
It is an option.
Can you just say we're screwed? Can we just admit that we're screwed? That this whole thing is far beyond when you're weighing civil liberties and civil rights versus common sense versus.
But you know what? Farrakhan. But we wouldn't be screwed, right? See, so here's the issue, and we talked about this before. When we say we don't trust the government, let us be clear. The government is made up of individuals who we have an opportunity to vote in or vote out. So when we look and say we don't trust them, then why the hell are we voting for them? And if we don't trust them, why aren't we voting them out? But we're not voting, right? When you look at the percentages The percentages of registered voters who actually participate in this democracy, right? They don't. They don't participate, by and large. And so we say we don't trust them, but we're not doing anything about it. And so yes, Farrakhan, we are screwed. We are screwed. But listen, I was talking offline to you guys, and I put this on the as a heading to the show, and I asked whether or not I was being what was the word I used, Vincent? Whether I was parsing words, I guess is another way of saying it. When we say systemic or structural, when we're talking about attacking these issues here in America, we talk about systemic racism, systemic this, systemic that, and I heard an argument today that we should be talking structural, not systemic. And I don't know whether or not it's semantics. I don't believe it is. But Farrakhan,
what's
if you
the
want to...
definition between the two?
Actually, it is a little. I never thought about it, Eric, but it is a little. Because there is a difference. Structural racism would essentially be the way the country is currently set up. You can have a racially biased majority white town next door to a predominantly black town, right? And because of the way government is set up, the way we vote people in, structurally, as we know, especially with like the jury the districting of congressional areas, you can create a structural racist system.
Yes, yep.
So yeah, there is a difference. You can do that. You can, they map. We know they do it right constantly, right? They create those districts for voting purposes in a racist manner. Gerrymandering, right? So it's gerrymandering. So you can do that. You can surely create a structural. So we are both. How about that? Can we not parse words and just say there is structural racism, there is systematic racism? I was part of a conversation which was the exemplary of both last night. I got on that Zoom call to the city of Shelby, the township of Shelby in Michigan, that was voting on the police chief who had created the secret Twitter account in which he just was going on tirades about killing protesters and what should really be done to them and how they were subhuman and all. And the city was debating whether or not they should fire the man. And in the end, they chose not to. They're giving them some kind of redirect his mind control class that he has to go to for 30 days. But the thing was, when I called in and spoke to their council, I said to them, you guys are voting based on, or you said you did not believe he was a racist, right? And the guy's name was Schlade, Robert Schlade. And I said, well, it's not Robert Schlade that you should be concerned with. It's his alter ego. It's that other person that he created when he went online. That's the person you're trying to vote out. That's the person that you should have been looking at. I don't ever want him in my police department.
Well, I think that's a little complicated, right? But hey, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You cannot, and this is the problem. This is why they're talking about the need to disband these police departments. You can't have, within the current construct, folks who have these predisposed ideas about other people, as did this police officer, right? Subhuman, whatever. So he's talking about people you don't even know, right? Just based on their skin color, their association, right? And so now he's bringing, it's not his alter ego, it's him. He's bringing that gun to the fight, right? So when he gets a phone call and he's told to come to the scene of a crime, that guy is bringing that mindset. And that mindset now is determining the decisions he makes. So when we say that we want somebody
But that was the whole point, though, Eric. In that man's case, he had a 30-year history that was perfectly clean, according to them. Right? So whatever it was...
No, but you know what, though? I get... But I get
right?
that. No, but hear what I'm saying to you. Dylan Roof didn't kill anybody until he killed those 9 people. Right? Dylan Roof didn't kill anybody till he killed those 9 people. But when they went and looked on his social media stuff, guess what they saw? But hey, he didn't kill anybody till he killed those 9 people. So are they now going to wait until he does it and then talk about that that other account that he had? Then they'll talk about it. I'm saying that they need to preempt it. Right? That they need to look. And so this is, again, part of that registry that I talk about, this national registry, because it'll give you a lot of information, because you'll get to see people who have complaints against them and other kinds of things, and you'll get to track, you'll get to profile, and then figure out and then stop things before they happen. And I'm saying in that profiling, I'm sure if they had a national registry and were able to put profiles together, they would see that this guy's a very, very dangerous guy. Very, very dangerous guy. And so to say, well, you know what? He didn't snap yet. Oh, he may snap, but he didn't do it yet. So we can't do anything. And I'm saying, no, wait a minute. This guy who is an officer of the court has stated publicly, he stated that he feels this way about a group of people that he has sworn to serve and protect. Now, what are you going to do with that? Does he feel that way or no? He said he did.
And with that, here comes the systematic racism. You had an all-white trustee board.
Well, of course, and that's the structural.
Right. That's how
and
so you might have to change the system some kind of maybe all.
No. See, no, that's not systematic. That's structural. See, That's what I mean.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's structural, right? So they created a structure.
So you got to change the structure.
There we go. See, that structure now. So he does what he does, and he walks into an all-white jury, right? And all of them have the same mindset that he has. And they go, oh, I get it. I get it. Hey, just fooling around. Let him go. Let him go. Just a little rap on the hand. You know, but now here's the thing. Today I was listening on the news. So take what you just said, Farrakhan, right? And they're passing this law now. Well, they're passing this legislation. That's what that was going on when the show started. The Democrats, at least in the House, they're trying to push through this legislation. And whoever the woman was who was at the lectern, she said, we need to restore the faith in the police department. Now, hold tight for a second, because I'm going to ask you, what black person who read that guy's tweet has any faith? Has any faith? So if you're talking, and this is again structural, right? If you want to fix this thing, you got to first understand that, hey, nobody got any faith in them. None. None. So you're not going to restore anything. You can work to bring it, but to do that, you have to tear this thing down. But to suggest that you're going to restore something that never existed, that's the same thing that Biden's saying. We're going to restore the soul of America. See, I want you to understand, these talking points are coming from think tanks. See, you're going to restore this, going to restore that. See, it ain't that bad. It ain't as bad as you all think it is. All we have to do is we have to, just make a couple of adjustments. No, we don't have to make a couple of adjustments. This idea of, I think you say it, Vincent, you say, we don't need a revolution, we need an evolution. No, we need radical change. That's what we need. Are you guys there?
No, we're here. We're just listening.
Yeah, but that's what we need. We need radical change. And so you've got now, and we talked about this the other day, these different people co-opting this thing, right? And now they're trying to figure out how to slow it down, right? Oh, maybe just say some kind words. We don't really have to give them all that, do we? We don't really have to do those things, do we? Just say some kind words. Just smile a lot at them. That's what they like. That's what they say about black folks. That's what they like. Just smile at them. Give them a couple compliments. Make them feel important. But we don't really have to do anything tangible for them. Nothing, we don't have to do that. This is die off. They're all emotional. But that's how they are. That's how black folks are. They get emotional about stuff. They tear some shit up.
Well, that's what we anticipate to happen. People will go back to work and all of this will die down because people have that available time on their hands to protest because they're trying to make up for all the money they lost. But that's seeming to backfire as well. If you saw a couple of articles in Florida, they're saying they're starting to close up some things because they've had 2,000 new cases 2 days in a row since they've opened the beaches. So, it's a back and forth. And then other states are saying, I'm not closing it down again. So, and then you have San Francisco talking about, well, we may do a couple of weeks close down, self-quarantine again.
Well, look, I heard Murphy on the news too, and he said that he's leaving it on the table if people don't, socially distance, and if they, get crazy, and if the numbers start to go up, that he's not ruling out, shutting things down. Look, they're not gonna shut. Diane, the economy is in such a shambles right now. That shutting it down again would create such uncertainty everywhere. It would collapse. Is my belief. And so you have the economists on this side saying, got to keep it open, got to keep the economy going, because if it dies, everybody dies anyway. Right? So you're not going to die of coronavirus or the underlying conditions or those things, but you're going to die because you can't put food on your table. You're going to die because you can't put a roof over your head in the 0-degree weather when winter time comes, and you can't fill your oil tank with heat, and you can't do those kinds of things. Those things are going to happen, and they're real. And the government is not prepared, not set up, doesn't have a safety net to take care of people. So people have to go out there. They have to forge out there. And that's why I said, I think that in the end, and that's why you have, such a collaboration across the world of scientists working to try to come up with a vaccine, because that is the only thing. Listen, even the restaurants and things that are opening, we see them, right? And we marvel at it. But those restaurants, if you talk to them, they're hurting. We see 20 people there, but that restaurant is used to having 200 people. So they're not doing well. And a lot of people, I'm not going anywhere. I told you, I drove by there with my windows up, doing 45 miles an hour. I'm not stopping there for anything. I go and I get my, bare essentials, and then I get myself back home. And I think that that's what most Americans are doing. And so, it's creating further stress on these businesses that are trying to figure out how to open. It's creating further stress on the economy because people are not spending their money, right? So, I don't know. And again, I would not, if I had a school-age child, I would not send my child to school this fall without a vaccine. I would not do it.
Yeah, I would definitely be considering homeschool if I had a child that had to go back into the school system. Because I don't see it as being safe, either the children or the adults that are working in the school system. Because people really don't have an answer, and it's very confusing because the messages, of course, are mixed, but that's also a part of media shining a light on what they want to be shown as being important. Because before the protest, all we talked about was COVID-19. Everybody's dying. The businesses are closing. Businesses are dying. Now, like you said, you got people out there protesting, and they aren't talking about COVID-19.
Right, but let's be clear. Let us be clear. Let us be clear, though. Wait a minute. One second, Farrakhan. Let us be clear. They were what they've always been talking about. The media has always been talking about is the presidential election, right? Masked in COVID-19, now masked in the protests. But all of it has been around trying to drive down Donald Trump or drive up Donald Trump's negatives. So when the conversation was about COVID-19, right, it was about him being an awful president. It was about the bad decisions that he made. That blood was on his hands. So what? It wasn't about us, Diane. And now that they're talking about the protest, it ain't about us again. None of this is ever about us. But they are clever in making you believe that it is. But the narratives are always about the other thing.
Farrakhan, you said, what about if you're a single parent? If I was a single parent,
like how do single parent households homeschool?
Well, if I was a single parent now, being who I am, I would have got together with the other kids from my daughter's class, and we would have set up a schooling system amongst us. And we'd have figured it out amongst a few parents, rotating whether the kids were going from house to house, or if they were physically inside the house to outside in the yard, or each day of the week a different parent was teaching a different subject or something like that. That's what I would do. What a traditional family might do, that's a single parent household, their kid might not go to school unless a parent like me said, look, we got something, we can help work it out. You have to be a part of this system. We're going to create a schooling system, a homeschooling system for our kids. That's the only way you can do it. But people have to be willing to take on that responsibility. Now, if you got multiple age kids in the household, then you got a lot to juggle. But then that's even more reason why you need to be, what do they say, leaning on your village or creating. This is the time to create a village. I had a village.
We have the village, right? We have the village in terms of your Board of Education. Well, I don't hear, the odd thing I've not really heard is anybody putting pressure on their Board of Education to create a safer environment for these children. See, everybody's rather, it's either I'm going to homeschool my kid or I'm sending them back to the death traps. Where is the medium of turning the death traps into something safer? I haven't really heard that.
What I've heard from parents is they're waiting for the school system to tell them what to do. I mean, I've talked to parents even when COVID first started, and they weren't calling the teachers and following up with the kids' classwork. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, well, my kids said they didn't have homework. I said, so you take that they didn't have any work to do? I said, you need to call the teacher and find out what's going on. You can't rely on your individual as your child to bring back all the information. You have to, and that's what any system, whether you're in person at the school system or not, parents have to be involved. They have to be involved with the teachers, with the administration, because those are the parents whose kids will excel. I see it all the time. My daughter excelled because I stayed involved. Whether I was volunteering, whether I was talking crap to the teachers or the administrators, I stayed involved because they didn't want to have to deal with me because my daughter was not doing what she was supposed to be doing. I send you to get educated. I expect you to educate her. If there's a behavioral issue, I expect you to call me, and I'll handle that. But parents have got to get involved. They have to. There is no, and with everybody at home, there is no freaking reason why parents have not picked up the phone and talked to these teachers or talk to administration to see what's going on, to see how they're moving forward, how next year is going to look. Because some schools are still, they have several plans in place. A plan to virtually learn, a plan to do partial in-person and virtual, and a plan to go straight back into the schools, into the school building. But what's the plan for your school district? Parents have to be involved to find out, and they have to have input. You can't rely on these teachers and these administrations to come up with the answers for your kids, because they don't always have the answers. They know how to instruct, but they don't know what a clean building should look like. They weren't cleaning before. You think they want to throw some extra Clorox on stuff now? Come on now.
True. The only thing I can say to that is I've sadly, from a post that I remember seeing, where a parent, a teacher's aide called the parent and asked could they speak to the child, after to see how they were feeling about the work, and the parent was upset about it and posted it online. And I saw that 50% of the people agreed that the schools were now doing too much to educate their kids from at home. And 50% disagree, like, yo, Dig, what are y'all upset about? So it's an awkward thing, man. Because personalities, man, are really weird.
But that's what dealing in the school system is. You're dealing with a multitude of personalities. But what the family also doesn't understand is now that your kids are being homeschooled and the teachers are in your home through a computer and see what goes on, the things that you think you could get away with, you still can't get away with. My daughter's school had a situation. The teacher was teaching a child, and the child wasn't responding the way that the adult, not the parent, but the adult thought they should respond, and picked the kid up and threw him on the couch. That's still child abuse. They still got to report that. Nothing changes. You see what I'm saying? So we're looking into your home, into your living condition, your living situation. That stuff is still going to get reported.
So you're saying exposed.
Exactly.
Those weak parents are exposed, and they might even be feeling some type of way now, because now you really get to see what the problem is with the child, right? Like, if you're having a child that has a problem, and you thought that maybe the parents were really actively trying to help, then you come to find out that they might actually be the problem.
Right.
So, I got you.
And then you have on the flip side where you have these parents, these renegade parents, not my child, and they constantly on the teacher about why is my child failing, why is this, why is that, and then when they get their kids in the house and they're doing this virtual learning, you see your kid ain't paying attention. Your kid is off doing other stuff, won't sit down on their phone. Everything is distracting them. So it's not the teacher, it's not the classroom, it's your kid. So now is the realization for parents to see there's something going on that I really haven't been paying attention to. And now you're getting called out because it's only a one-on-one with the teacher. You can't do it. So it's like a coming to Jesus moment for everybody. Everything that they complained about, and the teacher's bad, and the administrator's horrible, and the principal's this, and that, it ain't all them. It's not all them. And then you take your one difficult child and put them in a classroom with 2 or 3 other more difficult kids, and a teacher that has to worry about discipline and now can't teach because she got to worry about you throwing stuff at each other and y'all cursing and caring. It's a lot. It's a lot. So where do we go from here? What does the new school system look like? And I was just speaking to my daughter this morning. She's got 2 kids that she thought she might have had to hold back because of COVID, because she was able to give more attention to these children individually. Not even a lot. She said 30 minutes a day. Every day she's been giving 30 minutes additional to these kids. She has a kid that now is in kindergarten who couldn't count past 20, is counting way past 100. Just since COVID. Not even the school year, just since she's been home since COVID. So a lot of kids that were low are coming up because they're getting that individual attention that they really needed. Now, that's because she has parents that are pushing to make sure that their kids get it. Now, if you don't have parents that's doing that, you can teach as much as you want. The kid is still not going to get it. Right. Because it's a partnership between the parents and the school system.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. And I haven't heard much conversation about how the schools are, what they're going to do in the schools. I mean, you hear the talk about businesses and how businesses are restructuring, right? They're doing, a lot of people are going to be working from home, or they're creating a social distancing space within the businesses by, removing some of the desks, or again, lightening, creating a lighter in-house work group, right, of people.
So, the county, Essex County, they are going back, I believe, I forget what, this week or next week they go back. It might be right after the 4th of July, I can't remember. And they are doing split shifts. So what they're doing is they have half the staff in on one day and then the other staff in, and they're kind of alternating schedules. So this way there's less people in the office.
So they're doing it right. But I'm saying, so we hear how government is doing it. We hear how the private sector is doing it or thinking about doing it. Even secondary education, we hear, they floated out ideas of what they're, how they're going to restructure learning in colleges. I have not heard, Diane, in elementary school, high school, public schools, how they're going to be doing it. Nobody's been talking about it. And to me, people use Zoom a lot, right? I see, a lot of our elected officials going up there DJing and doing all kinds of other stuff. But I think they should be spending a considerable amount of time educating parents on what school's going to look like, what to expect, how to...
Okay, so you want the school board, who some of them don't have educational background, to educate the parents on what the school system's going to look like.
Well, somebody's got to... Look, but Diane, there's going to be some protocol. Whatever that protocol is going to be, share it. Don't...
The state did release, for New Jersey, they did release some things in regards to, especially with preschools and school systems, about closing off entries, that parents aren't allowed in the building. There's a drop-off area for kids to be dropped off, especially for the preschool, to be dropped off in the lobby, where outside people can't come in at all. They're supposed to be sanitizing the rooms. My daughter was telling me that the state of New York...
Do they have to wear gloves and masks? Do they have to wear masks?
They do have to wear masks. They talked about that. They also talked about in New York City. They talked about they had to they were looking at splitting the school days up according to the names, the alphabet system, and they were getting pushed back on that because the thing about that is the Board of Education or the Department of Education in New York also oversees the busing system. So the busing of kids would be off. They also talked about going back to neighborhood schools. So kids aren't being bused away from their school system. But that's a whole nother restructure that they have to do because remember, especially in Newark, a lot of the school buildings that are in walking distance in the neighborhoods have been sold to outside parties or been taken over by charter schools. They also, New York City also talked about they can't use the cafeteria at all anymore. They have to have breakfast and lunch in the classrooms. They also talked about there's no movement of the kids. The kids have to stay in the classroom.
Right,
there's
the
no
teachers are
from
going to
one
move.
class to the next. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the teachers cannot move because my daughter was talking about doing a plan where the teachers just move, the subject teachers move from room to room. They can't do that either. Teachers have to stay with the class that they start with the entire day.
So, wait a minute. So, if you're a math teacher, and now it's time for language arts, or I don't know if that's what they still call it. Or
something similar,
Right. Then that math teacher has to administer that curriculum?
Yes. So what they're saying is, so because the classes won't move, so say for instance you got two classes that are doing, because the whole school is usually on the same schedule at charter school. So if everybody is in this block and it's math time and during this block, what would happen is the math teacher will be in that one classroom and then they would use whiteboards in the other classrooms. So then they would get the whiteboards and the visuals through the other classrooms, but it would still be, that block of time would still be allocated for math, which is crazy. But that is just a preliminary plan that they had sent out. That's not definitive yet either. But they definitely said, and they also said they couldn't use the playgrounds anymore. They couldn't go outside and use the playgrounds and the play equipment. That was out.
Why?
Cleaning. explaining. I don't know what it is with New York City. I don't know if the schools own the playgrounds, because I know my daughter's school, their playground is across the street. So the playground is accessible to the public and to the school. So I don't know if that's the reasoning behind it. I don't know. But they said no use of the playground equipment. You can't use the cafeterias anymore. Yeah, so it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a really big challenge to figure out how to maintain sanitary conditions.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So what else is
I know
going
New York released stuff, but I didn't read their whole plan. I think I sent it to you. I'll read it tomorrow. They sent out some preliminary things about how it should look in the city of Newark. But see, that's the problem. Everybody's doing something different. Again, nobody's working together to put all of these ideas together to say this is what could work.
Well, I mean, I want to ask that question, right? Are the board members in Newark, whatever plan they've put in place, preliminary or not, who did they speak to? Who were the bright minds in the room that thought that it was a good idea? I think that we need to have, full disclosure, right? We need to have transparency and say, hey, look, here are the people that sat around and concocted this plan, right? And we believe it's going to work because X, Y, and Z. But to experiment at this time, especially when we're talking about kids in an urban community where they're already behind, they could ill afford to have any missteps or mishaps come this fall school year. So I'd like to know, what they did, what best practices they're following.
Oh, and the other thing that they said in New York City, that all the classrooms have to be cut in size.
Yes.
So if you have a class of 30, it's now 15, which is fine and which is even better. But so now think about this space. If the building has been leased out to a charter school and you got the public school in there, now you're limited on space where you can separate kids. Then you're talking about funding.
Well, right, because if you're now where you would have one teacher with 30 kids or 28 kids, now you need two teachers because you got to split that class up to 15.
Exactly. Yeah. But in charter schools, it's a little different because in charter schools, they already have two teachers per class to begin with. So that's fine to split. So they already have the teachers. But in public schools, where do you find all of this extra money? Well, the money, I'm sure they'll confine, but the money to pay for additional teachers to take over these split classes.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you're in college, you need to be getting a degree in education because there's definitely going to be money in that. Education and IT and healthcare. That's where it's always going to be at.
Hey, listen, we should have talked about that yesterday when we had Deidre on. Right? IT, education, and healthcare. So what else is going on, Diane?
Wait a minute. I was in the middle of drinking my smoothie.
Oh, that's okay.
That I just put cashews in. It tastes so good.
Oh man, I gotta figure something out. My energy level is so low right now. Like literally, even doing this show right now, like I could, if these lights were out, I could just go to sleep. I think I told you I had to go and get a shot of B12. And they have they have to figure something else out because it's just waning, You're
burning more energy than you're taking in. Did you see the article about Aunt Jemima brand is now changing the name and removing the image, saying that it's based on a racial stereotype? Do we really care about that since the company itself is not black owned? Don't people already know that?
Oh, Diane, listen.
Maybe that's even more of the reason. But it's not black owned. They have such a stereotypical slave or
so are they going to take Miss Butterworth off the... They're going to change the Miss Butterworth bottle too?
I don't know, but they said 130-year-old brand features a black woman named Aunt Jemima who was originally dressed as a minstrel character. The picture was changed over time, of course, and removed the mammy kerchief that the character was too blunt in growing criticism at that time. It's actually the company Quaker is a subsidiary of Pepsi Cola. So I don't know if it makes much of a difference to me. I mean, really, I never thought it was black owned.
Well, look, we talked about iconography before on the show and images and all those kinds of things. So, look, it doesn't hurt to change it, right? But I think, again, these are symbols. And but I think if we stop there, if that is it, then we haven't done enough, right? So they're saying that they're going to change it, and why are they going to change it, and then what other things are they going to do? Because if their belief is that they are contributing in some way toward all of these issues, then I'm sure it goes beyond their contribution to these issues, goes beyond the image of the person on their bottle of syrup. And I'd like them to address those, right? I'd like to actually talk to some Black Americans within their company to talk about how maybe internally, right, they are, there's this structure, right? So we're back to structure that is far more dangerous than the image of the character on the bottle. So
okay.
Yeah, I can't. To me, look, it's the shiny object, right? It's a shiny object. So it didn't offend you before. So nobody in the company was ever offended before this, and so why, right? Why weren't you offended? If you were not offended, why weren't you offended before? So if you're offended now, you know that there's something wrong now, and then you acknowledge, hey, we've had this, and everybody in the company, all of the higher ups within the company, all of the decision makers, nobody saw an issue with it until now. What does that say about that culture of that company?
What does it say about the culture of the people that still buy it? Because the culture of the company is what it is. I eat log cabin syrup. Yeah, or maple, or I'll get like pure maple syrup. I told you my friend in Vermont, he taps his maple tree and gives me syrup. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have all of these companies that say, "Oh, I want to change the rights for people to make it more cohesive," but what does it really matter if they're still racist companies? I mean, for instance, you have Home Depot who says that we donate to the Trump campaign, and we're going to even give more money for the next campaign. They don't stop people from going to Home Depot.
Diane, listen, that's more overt stuff, right? Here is the other stuff. So I let the devil back in my house by turning on MSNBC again. And I'm watching it, right? And I'm watching all these white folks who are on MSNBC talking about systemic or structural racism, talking about white supremacy, talking about how Black Lives Matter. All these white people. But none of them are talking about how their white privilege has them on that network talking about Black people. See, do you understand what I'm saying to you, Diane? So you don't have a balance of Black folk there to address these issues. There's no voice. You got Al Charlatan, and I do love Professor Eddie Glaude, but you've got but all of the key people are white, and they're there because of structural racism. And so if they want to do something, quit, and then acknowledge that you're there because you're white. Acknowledge that. But you're not. So you're there talking about an issue that you're benefiting from as you're talking about it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I mean, it's crazy. So you sit and watch. I don't care which. Look, go through all of the channels, all of them, all of the news channels. All these white people talking about poor black people. Oh, woe is them. Oh, we got to do better by them. Oh, look at them. I like we're well-trained animals that somebody looked and said, oh, we're mistreating them. We need to go give them a treat. We need to do something. Maybe go get them a bite toy or something. Right? But no, if you want to do something, acknowledge. See, I would love to see Joe Scarborough sit up on his show and talk about his white privilege for the whole 2 hours. I like Mika Brzezinski to talk about her white privilege for 2 hours. I'd like all the rest of them to talk about their white privilege for 2 hours. How they got to the different places in their career because of their white privilege. Let them do that. See, but they're not having that conversation. And so it's crazy because as a black American looking at them, I'm going, wait a minute. Don't talk about me, my issues. Talk about you. Let's talk about you. Because you're the issue. You're the problem. Not pointing fingers, but you're the problem.
Absolutely. I think they don't call it white privilege. They call it networking. That's what it is. They haven't realized what they possess just by being white. They just know they're not black and they have an advantage.
Right, but my point is this. Then focus on that. Focus on it. See, spend time in that space. Don't spend time over here because the problem is your white privilege. Because your white privilege was gotten through brutality. You understand what I'm saying, Diane? See, so once you start focusing on your white privilege, then you'll start digging into how you got it and how it's being maintained. See, but you don't want to focus on that. You just want to focus on the end result, right? And then say somehow we want to continue the white privilege and we want to give, we want to pander, right? And give platitudes to those who are suffering and marginalized, right? That's what they want to do. But I'm saying no. Just focus on you. If you did that.
So here's something. So the Boy Scouts announced that they're going to support Black Lives Matter, and they will require some of their scouts to earn diversity badges.
Oh God.
So wait.
You know what? Listen, Diane. All these people. Listen.
Wait a minute, it gets worse.
Oh
they say
it can't get worse, Diane. It can't.
Scout must earn a diversity and inclusion merit badge to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. That's the highest ranking Boy Scouts program. The new badge will build on existing programs that require Scouts to engage with other groups and cultures.
See, that's what I was going to say. So if I take a picture with a black guy, right, and smile really wide, that helps me get closer to my Eagle Scout badge.
However, in 2014, the Boy Scouts of America banned gay children and teenagers from joining the program. And a year later, they removed they banned one of the troop leaders, and they banned and removed gay troop leaders and employees.
Diane,
so I don't
what
get
I want to ask the Boy Scouts.
In 2019, they allowed girls to join the Boy Scouts. What the hell? They're like jumping on. They're a prime example of an organization jumping on the bandwagon. They on this side of the fence today, tomorrow they on that side of the fence. They all over the place.
Here's the question I have for the Boy Scouts. Do you understand the issues impacting black Americans? Right? Racial wealth gap, right? Education disparities, mass incarceration. Let's go down the list of all of the things. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do to fix that? Because the badge, that's for you. That's to make you feel good. That's to somehow rub salve on your guilt, right? But I'm saying, how are you gonna? Because if you're not, then just move out of the way. Because like Mr. Taylor said when he called in on the show, so I was like, look, we are on our way. We're on that slippery slope, going the same way of the Native American at the hands of this country, right? Zero wealth by 2053, an apartheid state within the next 30 or 32 years. So you're talking about a badge? You're talking about taking a picture with a black person, say, oh, I got a black friend? Really? That's not gonna cut it. And we gotta stop. You know, like literally, we should reject that out of hand. We should say, look, it's not what we're interested in. That makes you feel good. See,
so
I'm sorry.
So there was an Indonesian national airline that decided Tuesday that they were going to stop using face masks because passengers complained that they could not see the crew members smiling.
Oh God. You know what? You know what? I will design a face mask with a smile on it. With a smile on it. Or I'll put words on it that says, believe it or not, I'm smiling. Hey, what are we talking about? Are you serious? You know what? And then the smile is in your eyes anyway, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
It goes to your eyes, yeah. It should.
Yeah, so, you know, when somebody is smiling, you see it in their eyes.
So there is an app that they've created, a Siri shortcut that is activated when you say, hey Siri, I'm being pulled over. That will trigger your iPhone to start recording video from its front-facing camera. It pauses any music, it sends your location to a trusted contact, and it uploads the video to iCloud or any other cloud server of your choice. This shortcut was designed to help protect users during interactions with law enforcement. So again, you're creating stuff to protect the user. How about changing who the law enforcement is that's pulling you over?
Well, when I was Diane, when I was driving, I had one of those cameras in my car. You know what I'm talking about, right? And it was like motion. So, yeah, I had that. And then, you know, the few times that I was stopped, you know, I did know, you know, let the police officer know, you know, once you know you're being recorded. Yeah, look, we have to be prepared to do the hard work. We know now, and I'm saying we, right, as Black Americans, because we know that those folks who are currently in office. 1 second. We know that those who are currently in political office are not going to do the hard work. They never have. We ran down the list of some of them who have been in office for more than 3 and 4 decades, right? I mean, that's crazy, right? And they've not done the hard work. And so they're not interested in doing the hard work now of repairing any of this stuff. So we have to, you know, buckle down and determine that we're going to do the hard work. And the hard work begins with removing those people, right? Identifying folks within our own ranks who are detrimental to the movement, removing them, right? So that's a lot of work, right? So gotta get them.
But should it just start with the conversation of what racism is and how this country was built? Because I think if you start to educate people about the history and stop glossing over slavery and glossing over how the country was designed systematically, that people will start to look at things differently.
Well, yeah. So I said this before, right? That we should go in and tear every single book out of, like literally, we should yank every single book out of the public school system. Every one of them. We see what it's done. We see how America is miseducated about America. Americans rather, are miseducated about America. We see that, and not only Americans, but people who are not Americans who are here who are being educated in our system, they're miseducated too, right, about America. And so we need to acknowledge that. We need to say, you know what, this system is perpetuating itself because of the miseducation and the fact that we're allowing it. So we can definitely start there. But I think that in walking and chewing gum, let's do that. But the only way you can do it is you have to have folks in political positions who have the courage, right? So if we take the local schools around here, take Hillside, Irvington, take any of the schools in Oranges, take Montclair, North Irvington, Maplewood, right? And say to those board members, hey, listen, are you willing to stand up and say we need to remove all these books? You willing to do that? You willing to go in there with a wheelbarrow and literally just load the books in and just have one big bonfire in the parking lot? And they're gonna say no, right? And so now what we do know is that those kids will go in there in the fall, and they will be indoctrinated in the miseducation of America.
So what do you think about companies banning employees that wear Black Lives Matter garbs, whether it's a face mask or t-shirt, to work?
Well, look, if it's my company, I'm going to tell you what you can and cannot wear. I mean, that's it, right? It's my company. You go get your own company. Look, if I thought, now, it's hard for me to say it, right? Because, I mean, you come in with your ADOS shirt on. So you could rock that at Grandma Emma's. But if it offends, if you're so here's what I'll say though. If you're wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt and your boss has a problem with you wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, that ain't a company you want to be at. See, you understand what I'm saying, Diane? So you're looking and going, I know these people don't want. Look, my daughter, I told you guys this story, right? When Eric Garner was choked to death, my daughter was attending Governor Livingston High School in Berkeley Heights, and she wore "I Can't Breathe" shirt. Two days later, 20 or 25 white kids came to school with an "I Can Breathe" shirt on. Right? I was living in Montclair. My ex-wife was living in Berkeley Heights. She called me up. She said, we need to move her out of the school. See, I wasn't going to go to the school and say, you know what, no, because what I realized, Diane, is there was a sickness there. And I just want to get away from it. Right? I don't believe that I can cure that.
Right.
Because those kids are high school kids, and their parents allowed them to walk out of the house with "I Can Breathe" shirts on in school. And that school allowed them to come into the school with those shirts on.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How the administration, they allowed it, so yeah.
And so I looked and said,
but in their defense, they probably said, well, I'm giving them free speech just like she had free speech. But and see, that's the thing. Is it free speech, or is it demonizing and objectifying?
No, it's bullying.
It's free speech, and they have a right to it. I'm always on the side that express yourself. This is a country in which we have been telling people that from day one, right? Express yourself. I don't think that it is right to tell a Klansman he can't express himself. I don't think it is right to tell a Black Lives Matter person it is not their right to express yourself. I believe that everyone, no matter whether or not you like or dislike what they're saying, okay, has a right to say it, has a right to express it. You don't have to force me to agree with it, right? And that doesn't have to happen. I don't have to agree with it. But don't tell a person that their thought or their idea is illegal.
No, nobody
right?
said
It's
it was
wrong.
illegal. What I said was that I don't know where that came from. What I said was we packed her up and we moved her to Montclair. See, we let them wear their shirts.
Oh no, I'm not saying that you said that it wasn't, but just the concept of saying that, okay, somebody can't wear a shirt with a slogan that they believe in, you gotta let them do that, right? You can't ban that, right? Because if you start banning that, then basically you're saying you don't want to hear objecting views.
Okay. All right. So the next one, did you hear about the Florida protester, Olawale Salu? She's 19. She was found dead in Tallahassee after going missing. 19-year-old protester was who begged for justice in the wake of the Black Lives Matter, was found this past Saturday night after she went missing more than a week on June 6th, family members told the newspaper. She was one of 2 homicide victims discovered Saturday night in southeast Tallahassee, a couple of miles from the library. They said that she and another person, Victoria Sims, who was 75, also reported missing. Was the second victim, was a retired state worker and grandmother who also volunteered during the political campaigns as well as during this Black Lives Matter march. And now they're investigating. They said they just arrested somebody 49 years old who they believe was the perpetrator of killing them.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, though. Like, her protesting, from what I understand, and I had posted it a couple of days ago, it has nothing to do, like they say, Black Lives Matter protesting. But in the end, at least from the person that they have arrested, I believe they're trying to say that the guy that they arrested may also be the guy that gave her the ride that supposedly molested her. Right. So I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like, my daughter put me on it a couple of days ago and trying to explain it to me. And so I'm trying to understand it. I'm like, I'm a little lost why they're tying the Black Lives Matter, to it. But apparently it doesn't have anything to do with her protesting position.
Okay, so here's another one. There's a bill, S-593. It spells out that payments to victims of sexual assault and sexual harassment by a candidate or campaign employee are not allowed to use campaign expenses to pay for, not allowed to use or can be paid for through campaign contributions. So basically, what their harassment, and this is New Jersey, what they're saying is the bill was passed this past Monday, stating that they can't use any of their money if they are proven or they are fighting a case for victims' sexual assault or sexual harassment.
Well, I agree with that. I agree. Well, you know what? I don't know if I agree with that. If they're being accused, because what you're now saying is that they're guilty.
So, here's the other thing. So, the New Jersey law says that it already prohibits Garden State employees from entering into non-disclosure legal agreements with accusers in cases that involve sexual harassment and discrimination. So, this, I believe, is transpiring out of the campaign employee that was harassed by the other campaign employee that worked for Governor Murphy, that she advised him several times of what was going on, and he kind of said he didn't know anything about it. So what do you say? You think it's okay?
Well, look, if I'm being accused, right, we say that jurisprudence, right? You say I am innocent until proven guilty, And so I should be able to use whatever is at my disposal to defend myself. And now, if you're limiting what I can use to defend myself, then you are saying that I am guilty.
Well, not
Because if I
necessarily.
was innocent,
Go back to the case with Sharp James and with Christie. Christie said that Sharp James couldn't use any of his campaign money to defend himself. But then in other cases, when it was, oh gosh, I can't remember the other person that was in New Jersey, they were allowed to use their campaign funds to help against their, to help defend them and purchase attorney services.
Yeah. Again,
So,
if you're telling me that I can't use this money or whatever resources to defend myself, then you are presuming me guilty, right?
No.
Because if I'm innocent, then I should be able to use the money. Because that's the question I asked. If I'm innocent,
No, because the campaign money is specifically designed and specified what you can use the money for. It should not be used for your legal defenses if you're accused of sexual harassment. Why would I give you $100 towards your campaign and now you get accused and you could take my $100 and use that for your legal defense?
wait a minute.
That would be the same as if you had a state employee, and this is state employee we're talking about.
I misunderstood what you were saying. I misunderstood what you were saying. No.
Okay.
I agree with you. I misunderstood.
Because you gotta remember, you have state employees that are like elected officials who are state employees. If they are accused of something, the government steps in and they defend them because they're an employee of the state as an elected official. They're covered. So here's another thing, New Jersey. The state of New Jersey is suing Trenton for refusing to fund the upgrades to their troubled water system. So they stated that because the city of Trenton, the Trenton's water works refused or failed to deal with ongoing issues for the water utility in the city of Trenton, the state is now suing them, which is interesting to me that they would even sue them over that. They said the lawsuit asked the courts to compel the city to comply with the 2 existing consents from Trenton that ordered them in the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, also stating that they've had years of mismanagement, which we know because the 3 mayors before the mayor they have now, is the mayor they had to drag out of City Hall, and his brother was overseeing the water department and all of that. Tony Mack, yes, thank you. They said that the city, Trenton's council, refused to provide adequate funding for the drinking water system improvements, and it has become more than clear that they have not met the obligations of the Safe Drinking Water Act. But yet Newark's water is still the worst, but the city didn't sue Newark. So what's going on?
Well, that's because they're going to say, I guess Trenton probably is doing nothing. So you have to at least act like you're doing something. The city of Newark, as long as Newark sends out a thing every 3 months or so saying, here's the latest status of how bad your water is, right? You're doing something. We took some tests, and that's it, right? You still haven't come up with a true remediation plan. Just, okay, you're bad, your water is bad, here's your latest update. And Trenton is probably in total neglect. Trenton is probably just chilling like, we ain't talking about this. Okay.
So look, Trenton Water Works began using the new corrosion system control treatment last year to address the issue. In January of this year, utility began replacing 36,000 lead service lines in the water system. 36,000. So like you said, they're pretending, because look, so far the water system has been replaced for 828 lines. So out of 36,000, they've only done 828.
Oh, God.
So you're right. They are doing nothing.
Yeah, at least North can say they're about halfway done now, right? You know, of the 15,000 lines that they said they were going to, it might even be more than that. But I know they had hit like the halfway mark like, a few weeks back. And, so Newark, I'm not, you gotta, again, broke clock is right twice a day. I'm not saying that it solves everything, but hey, at least the city of Newark appears to be doing something.
So in New Jersey, again, on Monday, legislators met, and they're talking about reforming the police accountability, which will include establishment of a civilian review board, doing nothing, and limiting when police can use chokeholds by advancing a set of bills in the wake of widespread protests. The bill that was passed in Assembly stated that the guidelines already issued by the Attorney General directs police officers to limit the use of chokeholds to situations where they fear for their lives or lives of others. The use of chokeholds by law enforcement has come under scrutiny nationwide, of course. But certain Assemblyman Ryan Peters argued that the certain chokeholds should be allowed as an appropriate use of force.
I agree with that. I think that, look, you can't, look, so here's the deal. You cannot send a police officer into the unknown. And then say to them, the person that you're going to engage has no rules. But we're going to say to you that you can't subdue him like this. And like Farrakhan said on a previous show, so now what is the alternative? And Biden gave it. Shoot him in the leg. Right? So if I gotta subdue this person, and let's take, like right now, I'm about 157 pounds soaking wet. So let's say I was on the police force and I encounter a 300-pound guy. All right? And you tell me that I cannot I can't put him in a chokehold to subdue him. I say, well, okay, what are the other options that I have? Right? Because I'm fighting with this person, I'm battling, and they got no rules. They're not fighting with any rules at all. And I can't put them in a chokehold. What am I gonna do? So yeah, I think that there should be circumstances where you can do it. I think that here lies the issue. I don't know that the chokehold itself is the issue. I think it's when the guy says, I can't breathe, and the person stops fighting, and you maintain the chokehold. So in Eric Garner's situation, they maintained the chokehold even when he was down and was saying he couldn't breathe. In Mr. Floyd's case, the guy stayed on his neck for almost 9 minutes. Do you understand what I'm saying, Diane? So if the idea was, if I'm looking going, okay, I'm trying to use the least lethal force possible to subdue this person, right? So that's where I am. That's my headspace. And I go, okay, I'm trying to de-escalate. This person's making it difficult for me to de-escalate. I got to escalate, all right? But I'm always thinking, this person's a human being, right? So you got to be there too, right? So this person's a human being, not like the guy called, what do you say, subhuman, right? No, he's a human being, and I'm going to treat him as a human being. Yep, he's being a bit ornery right now, so I got to escalate to get him. Now, once I get him subdued, I'm realizing I have a human being subdued in a chokehold. Hey, sir, I'll release this chokehold if you stop.
Okay, so then you have Pat Culligan, the president of the New Jersey State Policemen's Benevolent Association, testified against the bill, creating a civilian review board. He stated he cautioned that legislation was rushed and that the Attorney General has issued very good rules on how these boards should operate. He states, in quotes, "We cannot create the wild, wild west out there with these civilian review boards. Some of these groups tend to divert from their original mission." And then you have Assemblywoman Sumter and some other people saying that you just want to make sure that there's transparency and that the people get fair review. What do you think about the civilian review boards for police departments? Do you think it should be something mandatory in every whatever wherever there's a police department, there should be a civilian review board that's set up.
Look, I like the idea of, I like the concept of civilian review boards. I think that there needs to be oversight, you know, and I think that the public needs to be empowered to be able to do that. The question that I have is this: when you put a civilian review board together, who is the entity that is determining who sits on that board?
Right, and that's what someone else was stating about. They don't want these review boards, and we've seen it turn into political appointments.
Right, and so now as soon as that happens, you end it, right? Because what we know is that the politicians in the pockets, or the unions in the pockets of the politicians, or however that goes. And so now, if you've got the union endorsing the mayor, right? The police union endorsing the mayor, and then the mayor is appointing who sits on the civilian review board. What are we really getting? So, so yeah, I don't know how we would go about appointing them, but in theory, I think that having a civilian review board is a good idea.
Do you think that enacting and making a part of the hiring contract for police officers, because I posted this on my page some time ago, about in the contract for police officers mandating that they do some type of, or so many hours of volunteer community service within the community that they work, or they revise and restart the PALs, because that was what the PAL was supposed to be, was a way to engage the children with the police officers, so there was no fear to call a police officer if you needed help. They were supposed to be your friend, supposed to be, somebody that would protect you, not kill you. What do you think about that? Do you think that would ignite a better community between the police and the community, the residents?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. Just briefly.
Police, the PAL. Do you think the PAL is necessary for the police to volunteer, to be mandated to volunteer as part of their contract, hiring to work with the community to engagement?
Look, it doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt. But I don't know how much it helps. It doesn't hurt. But you're taking, again, let's say a guy or a woman who has these inherent biases based on their upbringing, and now you say, I want to immerse them in this community to teach them cultural sensitivity. I don't know.
Does law have cultural sensitivity? I'm not disagreeing to it, but does law have? If an officer is there to enforce the law, you're telling me you have to do that in a cultural manner?
But what you do have is this.
Law is.
But what you do have is you have discretion, right? Police officers have discretion. So let's take the guy in Atlanta who was shot and killed, right? And there's back and forth about what happened, right? So the guy was in a Wendy's parking lot or whatever it was.
Yeah, Wendy's.
Right, he was driving. He pulled over because he realized he was drunk, and he passed out. They reported it to the police. The police came, and in the beginning, they were pretty cordial, right? And the guy even said, "Hey, listen, if you got a problem with me driving, we call my sister. She's right down the street. She come get me." Right? That was the conversation. Why was there a need to arrest him?
Now, in response, and I'm not defending the police, but I've always made my position clear on this. It was going to happen for what he did. I don't think that the police officers were wrong, in all honesty, for how that ended up. Because you said something interesting.
No. But let's take it one step at a time, right? Let's not get beyond the first point. if there was an out. So what the cops did know is this. They knew that the guy pulled over, right? That he pulled over.
He didn't pull over. He did not pull over.
What did he do?
He was in the parking lot. They asked him to pull over. They went to his car. He was in the actual cars were driving around him to get their orders.
Okay, hold on.
He was in the actual drive-through line.
The call. I missed the call.
Okay.
I missed it.
Okay.
I missed it. So okay.
So he was in the actual line. They went over to him. They said, "Hey man, can you pull over?" So then he pulled out of line.
Wait. So he was in the drive-through line?
Yes. All the videos, I have put 10 videos up about this. Right? They're all on my page. The very first...
Hello, caller? Hello?
Hey, what's going on, man? Not the one that shot him, the other one. Okay? Went to his thing, knocked on his door. He woke up, fell back asleep. Okay? Then the police officer had to open the door. Tell him that I'll wake him up again.
Then I apologize.
Then he pulled over. Okay, he asked him, can he pull over? So then he pulls out of line, pulls over. They get out, they have the conversation. He is totally out of his wits. Okay, unfortunately, this is where people are feeling. The reason he had to be arrested is because he gave 3 different versions. Well, first, he didn't know where he was. Then once he knew where he was, okay, first he said he was around the corner. Then he was he said my sister's house is around the corner. Then it was, I'm at the hotel right across the street. Right? There were 3 different stories of where he would go. So there was nothing reliable. Everybody forgets why DWI and DWU is taken so hard in America. Does anybody remember the 70s and 80s when they changed those laws? Because it was that bad. The police were letting people go home, and then they were running people over. Okay, he broke the basic rule. He gave 3 different versions of what he had drunk. First it was margaritas, then it was some other kind of drink. Back and forth. So in the end, there was no reliability that he would do what they asked he was offering to do, which is just walk home or whatever. Right? So they had to. They were going to arrest him. Simple and plain.
Right,
there was no way around that.
Go caller.
Hey, whatever they were going to arrest him for, he didn't deserve a death sentence. But the police in the United States are the most protected class of people legally and union work contract. The most protected class of people in the United States. I want to go back to the argument. They should be discussion. That's Big Mike. They should be. The people that you ask to protect. Hold on, can I finish my statement? Go ahead. Thank you. To resist suffocation is not resisting arrest. The minute you try to deprive me of life, something's wrong with me if I don't fight back. And like you said, we've been so miseducated to be the perfect consumer of whatever crap they're selling us that we'll lay there and let somebody choke us to death. And the police... What does that have to do with the Atlanta case? I came in your case, but I was specifically talking about Eric and his position on the chokehold. There's no good depriving me of life, and I can't resist. There's none. You try to take me out definitely or take my life, I'm going to start resisting because that's human nature. But we've been so oppressed to the point where somebody can put their hands around our neck or their knee on our neck, and we will lay there and be polite and kind. Now, as far as going back to this thing, then I'll finish and respond to what you got to say. The most we should all, ultimate power ultimately corrupts. So now police are the most protected class. They have legal qualified immunity and all of these other things. And because they have all of these other things, they cause the divestment of our community and enrichment of their community, and we can't get a basic education, but they can get military equipment to keep us in our position in life. So, if you think that a militarized state or militarized, you agree would not be done. That's how it started. So I'm just gonna let you, respond to that. And then okay. I'm gonna break it down from what you just started with. When we're dealing with Eric Garner and the chokehold, I do believe yes, you're gonna fight a chokehold, right? Anybody puts you in a chokehold, you're gonna fight. But let's be honest. He was resisting arrest. That's how he ended up in the chokehold, right? They didn't just put him in a chokehold, okay? They said, hey, man, we're arresting you. I saw this little small cop was like, this is what we're doing. And Eric Garner said, no, I'm not going. Not today. Once you say that, ball game. Police going to do what they want to do. Let's be clear. So that's the Eric Garner situation. Now dealing with the Rayshard Brooks situation, okay? Here's your difference. Again, these police officers, first and foremost, police officers should be one of the most protected classes. Anybody I ask to be my protector, I got to protect them first, right? If I got a bodyguard, I got to make sure my bodyguard is equipped and able to protect me. Otherwise, what's the point of having a bodyguard? Okay, so that is a given. Okay, that you're going to make sure that police are protected. Now, it should still be just, and it should still be correct where they're wrong. Let them stand on it and get their punishment where they're right. Punish them. I mean, vice versa.
So I want you to explain what you mean when you say that they should be protected. See, because I think the conversation is that they're protected to the point that they are above the law, right? So when you say that they should be protected from whom and from what?
Well, I think you would have to ask Mike what he meant, and then I can respond to that.
You say
my understanding, like I said, as I cleared it towards the end, I said, listen, where they're wrong, they need to be punished. Okay, I'm not saying that they're above the law. Okay, but if you're saying that police need to be protected in the sense of the weaponry they use or what leeway they're given to protect the citizens, to control situations, I do believe they need to be given specific leeway. They can't go under the same. I don't want to say rules. I don't know what the word is, but it can't be under the same measures. Right? If you're going to enforce a law, you can't also be behind the law the exact same way. At some point, there's an enforcer's rule, right? And that enforcer's rule is what you have to apply to them. So there's certain things they're going to do. I don't care what you say or anybody says. You you beat up 2 police officers because they asked you politely, hey, man, at this point, I don't think, I believe that you were driving intoxicated. I'm arresting you, right? He turned around. He put his hands behind his back. Police didn't do anything out of the way. And then he just said, hell no, I ain't going to jail today. So then he began to fight. So when he fought, he beat those 2 officers, okay, took one of them's service weapon of sort, right, and then ran with it. All right, then turned around and pointed it and fired it. That man is asking for a bullet. Now, if you want to say he shouldn't have got shot in the back, he was running away, but he was aiming, shooting backwards. So unless you're saying you're waiting for the cop to get in front of him, okay, in order to shoot him, but he's going to defend his life. Bodily injury is not just about whether or not you can kill the cop, it's whether or not you can harm the cop, right? No. And that's where the problem is. People keep arguing it, and I keep saying, listen, you can't tell a police officer he's supposed to get stunned.
No.
If you try to stun me, I'm going to shoot you. If that's my way to protect myself. And he's supposed to do that.
So, no. So, well, listen. So we're gonna let this play out because it's 12 o'clock now. But I think maybe tomorrow we'll expound on this a little bit more because you put a lot out there, Farrakhan. Some of it I disagree with in terms of whether the police officer felt his life was in danger, whether he,
It's not his life, Eric. It's his body. If you think you're going to shoot me with a taser, and I'm not going to protect myself with every means that I have, you're wrong.
No. The question is whether it was legal for him to do it, right? So he may have, obviously he felt that way, But the question is whether or not he operated outside of the law when he did it, right? And so that is what's.
Well, go on my page and read the Georgia law. It's on my page, and he has the right to defend himself. And watch what happens when this is all over. He will not be charged with murder. He will not.
Well, I'm not gonna adjudicate the case. Yeah. I don't. I wasn't there. We seeing portions of a tape. I'm just speaking on the protected class of people that and the legal immunity that they have as police gives them ultimate power. And I know that ultimate power corrupts. Now, we are in a system that our bodies are being pumped through a pipeline to prison, and it's bigger than this. We marginalize it, not to marginalize the cost of life, but to these couple of cases. And the broader picture is, no, we need to redirect some of our. The scales are not balanced. Can we just agree that the scales of justice are not balanced, and that's what they're supposed to represent. I'm gonna leave it at that.
I agree. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in.
All right.
Thanks for calling in, Mike Farrakhan.
Don't forget the book.
Okay.
Yes. When affirmative action was white.
Was white.
When it was white.
All right.
All right. Then.
Okay, talk to y'all later. Good to speak to y'all.
Hey,
have
a great day, everybody. Stay safe.
All right. Bye.
And stay away from all those people who are trying to end social distancing. Stay socially distant.
Yeah. Bye.